4 signs you're growing up as a car enthusiast. So what marks your maturity as a veteran car enthusiast? A faster car, your skill at driving, your ability to work on cars, or the literal years you spent as a car enthusiast? It's probably not as deep as any of the following above. It's actually quite the opposite. This isn't going to be super preachy, but it's not going to be super savage either. It's just a car video, alright? And I think you're going to enjoy this. So the first thing I want to talk about that's a very big sign of you growing up is starting to reject brand loyalty. As you grow up in the world of cars especially, you should try out as many brands as possible. Now, of course, this doesn't mean go out and buy a ton of cars. I definitely do not recommend that. Cars are expensive. What I mean by that is to see the strengths and weaknesses, and more importantly, it could even just boil down to who you hang out with. Because if you just constantly just be that guy who's domestics versus imports, or tuners versus Euros, or JDM versus muscle, or blah blah blah, you don't grow as a person. You end up just living in a bubble. If you like, for example, if you're a JDM fanboy, he always just versus the world and only cares about Japanese cars. It's incredibly annoying. Like the amount of brains I've made completely fail to function just by saying the phrase, hey, I like supercars, tuners, muscle, and Euro cars. And then people just kind of look at me like, does not compute, does not compute. And don't get me wrong, that doesn't mean I'm a mushy loser who thinks there's no such thing as bad cars. I think each one of those categories has bad cars in them, but I don't think you can call a whole category bad. Like, I always get upset when people are like, oh, all muscle cars suck, or all JDM cars suck, or all Euro cars suck, and blah blah blah. Like, it's so stupid, right? You shouldn't live around people who are like that, the they versus them crowd, as I call them, because the they versus them crowd doesn't want to grow. They just want to live in an echo chamber that they're part of. Are you being paid by the company that you're diehard loyal to? Like, let me repeat that. Are they paying you to be part of their brand? It's quite the opposite. Rather, you're paying them to be part of their brand. You're giving up money, most of you monthly, even for years, just to own one of their vehicles. So why then? Why are you so ridiculously strung into it and so deeply embedded into your ego over it? It's just a piece of metal. The other thing I want to quickly touch on is that when brands compete with each other, us consumers win. You can actually pinpoint the exact moments when brand competition forces company innovation. The 2010 Mustang had a new body style, but it had an old engine because Ford it was just straight up going to probably do the 3-valve engine for another 5 years because they like to save money, they like to maximize profit margins. Every company will eventually do this. Don't just think this is a haha Ford is evil thing. Every company can and will do this if given the opportunity to, because they're a business, they want money. But then guess what happened? The Camaro just no longer was a concept anymore, made basically like 50% more horsepower, and just completely blew the doors off of the 2010 Mustang GT. This completely sent Ford back to the drawing board to make the Coyote engine. It was a really good engine, and this innovation happened because of that competition. We can even use this with Japanese cars. The R34, Mark IV, NSX, FD-RX-7, and the 3K GT, they were all great cars, not because of sheer luck or coincidence, but because they targeted each other. They were completely competing neck and neck. It was very cutthroat. Now let's look at modern Japanese culture. Why do you think the R35 has been lazily going along and getting so ridiculously expensive despite being the same platform? Remember, no company is a saint. That's just not how being a company is. If Nissan can get away with making the same car and charging more for it without doing much to it, they're going to do it. If part of the reason I warmed up to the Mark V Supra, even though yeah, it has BMW platform, blah blah, but I no longer hate the car or even neutrally think about the car. I'm actually glad it exists because it made me realize something. Even if it's not fully Japanese built, it's a Japanese brand. It's sold as a Toyota Supra. We'll shake Nissan to their core to some extent. They'll look over at it and think about it like, you know, I think some of our cars need updating, and guess what they did? They updated the Z platform, and guess what they're probably going to do for the R35? They're probably going to finally update it as well, because if the Mark V gets better and better and better, to the point that it even starts to be a better bargain for price, even when compared to the top dog Godzilla, then you're really going to cut into their market share, which again means that they can no longer be lazy and get away with making profit off of making the same thing, because now they have to make the same thing, not the same thing. That's why brand loyalty on the macro scale, on the actual business side of things, is not good, because you want brands to compete with each other. Like, just by saying what I said, I've probably triggered some GTR fanboys claiming like, no, it's fine as is, dude, not the prices, there's nothing wrong with it, bro, but you're a hater, bro. Like, let me say this again. Are they paying you? If not, Why then? Why are you so defensive over the smallest of criticism? Criticism is not hate, and stop calling people haters for it. This brings us to the next entry. Being able to take criticism. This is one of the hardest parts of being a car enthusiast, actually. Straight up, a lot of modern car enthusiasts suck at this. They just like to live in a bubble and shield themselves behind the use of the word hater. This not only makes you grow as a car enthusiast, but also makes you grow as a human being. You know, nothing is perfect. Nothing ever will be perfect, and nothing ever was perfect. When you realize this, it doesn't turn you into a nihilistic or hateful human, but rather a hopeful and heroic human. You realize that no matter how destined these flaws are to exist, you're still going to try to fight each and every one of them, trying to chase that mythical perfection. This is why veteran tuners will chase every single little ounce of performance from an engine, and they understand everything about it. They accept its limits and then push past those limits. Do you think that these diehard enthusiast tuners and builders would have completed or accomplished what they accomplished if they threw a freaking hissy fit at every little critique thrown at them? It was their acceptance of critique, their acceptance that they were not perfect, the acceptance of the fact that they were flawed, that made them who they are and made their accomplishments what they are. The very real concept of failure points, the very real concept of platforms having limits and trying to learn them, what to avoid when you're building them up and how to build them up to slowly progress it safely, step by step. That's how you break limits slowly, just because you'll never reach perfection. And that shouldn't be an excuse not to try. When you stubbornly sit there and say, I'm already good as is, you're all just haters, leave me alone, my car is perfect, there's nothing wrong with it, you guys are just a hater and jealous I have a better car, you're a boring human to talk to. Because if you've accepted that you're perfect, then you've already basically alienated yourself from being a human. You're just trying to be an untouchable god, which you clearly aren't. We're not going to bow down and worship you. We're going to drag you and kick you around just like we do each other, because that's very human behavior. Even if it isn't outright criticism and it is starting to lean more towards just a straight up joke, whatever, just laugh about it. It's insane how many people get offended by literally everything these days. A third sign that you're growing up is realizing it's not always about spec sheets. The fastest car won't put the biggest smile on your face. Even if you've got deep enough wallets to afford it, that doesn't really matter, because like real world use of those specs, it's never going to translate the same as online bragging about it. You know, the spec sheet warriors, oh hypercars, oh supercars, oh super duper expensive highly built tuners or muscle cars, because yeah, like a GT500, which isn't as expensive as a supercar or hypercar, is still a decently expensive car and really is only a track toy to someone who's already made it in life. If you're someone who is still in the process of making it, especially someone in your youth, you shouldn't be taking a freaking 84-month loan on a GT500 just to end up slamming it into a wall and track. You should have gotten something cheaper, because when you get those cheaper things, you learn a lot more by pushing them to their limits. And the real big thing I want to talk about are classic cars. And these cars, especially with how old some of their parts are and really how realistically underpowered they are, you know, compared to modern standards, these are cars that are also not fast by any stretch of the imagination. Again, from a stock form, don't talk about resto mods, just stock to stock, these aren't fast cars either, but it's a true gearhead's life. I've seen people go from the most non-car-y of car guys to the most intelligent and capable local car enthusiast just by owning a few classic cars, because classic cars push you to your limits in a different way. They don't push you to your limits of speed, chasing every corner on a mountain or going through lap times on tracks, or these push you to fix what has been broken and what is going to continue to break. And when you finally crank a classic car to life, it's not the joy of speed that gets you going. It's not the status of what it's worth or the cornering capability, it's the heritage, the realization that you're not only preserving a part of history, but in a sense have also become part of history. To just quite literally be grateful that a car even starts. And when it does start, they just enjoy the drive. The final proof that you're growing up as a car enthusiast, and one that is truly gonna cement it, is when you don't care about what others think. You'll get to a point in your life where you genuinely stop caring about what others think, in a good way, because to some extent you shouldn't ignore people. That's different than not caring about what they think, or rather, avoiding judgment is the best way to talk about this. And that fine line is kind of hard to walk as a beginning enthusiast, and it was hard for me to walk. Letting go of expectations is a very, very big part when it comes to not caring about what others others think. It's no secret that I basically gave up on trying to buy a supercar. It's also no secret that when I first started this channel, and basically all my life, even as a kid, I loved supercars. I really loved them. My whole life I've been sold straight up on the status, the specs, and the looks of supercars. The more and more I tried to buy a supercar because of the expectations, right? I'm a car YouTuber. Ooh, I have to have supercar. Everyone else has a supercar. And then I realized, well, if everyone else is a supercar, will I really be special if I do it? If the whole strange hypocrisy or contradictoriness of that, I'm chasing a supercar to feel special, to feel the status, only to realize that if everyone else is doing it in my current position, it does the opposite. I'm just doing exactly what is expected of me. I'm doing the baseline. And that's also what pressured me to feel behind. I was like, well, if everyone else is doing it and I have yet to do it, then I'm failing as a YouTuber. I'm failing as a car YouTuber. I don't have a cool supercar. I still have a stupid boomer Corvette and a derpy muscle car Mustang. It's really weird to hear me talk about those cars like that because usually I love them, and that is what should matter, right? I love them, not what other people think about, but it does get to you. And eventually I said, okay, let's take the supercar expectation, right? You know, instructions unclear, subtract 2 letters, add 2 more, boom. Supercar? Nah, buy Super Cub. I don't know what clicked in my head. I really don't know what clicked in my head other than the fact that one day I was researching for a video. I didn't even end up making the video, but basically it was supposed to be a video about like the most sold cars in history. And when I went to go Google the most sold vehicle in history, I accidentally left my VPN on, so it was not in America. So it gave me a different search result, because in America that search result will give you cars only, because this is a car-centric country. So it ended up telling me the Honda Super Cub was the most sold vehicle ever. And I was like, oh, I've never heard of this vehicle. So I clicked on it expecting like a Honda car. And then when I saw this bike, holy crap. Never in my life have I been so sold on something really just for the charm. I think it is the same reason people like K cars and Miatas. I absolutely adore the Super Cub. And I've had this vehicle for months now. And if you've been following my Twitter, you've probably already known that. I haven't been talking about it much on my channel because there's no reason to talk about it on my channel. I'm a car guy, right? But I think it's important for me to share it to you guys because the very obvious thing that's in the room, and you can probably hear it through my smile, this is a scooter. This is a scooter. It only has 10 horsepower, it has a top speed of 65 miles an hour, it gets like 155 miles to the gallon. It's great. It literally only cost me like pennies on the dime to get it going places, but it captures everything I wanted it to capture. It takes me places, it makes me love the journey, it makes me feel like a kid again, going A to B, being excited ever in between. You just love the ride. And it feels like you're going so fast when you're cranking the scooter out at 60 miles an hour because there's nothing, because it's a scooter, right? It has these thin tires and these big old wheels and it's like so derpy, and if you go over certain cracks and bumps, you feel everything about it, but it's fun. And by the way, I own a Harley Davidson. I've owned one well before I became a car YouTuber. It was a Harley Davidson Porsche Night Rod, and I currently still own a Harley Davidson, which is the successor to the Night Rod, but I still love this scooter. It's a totally different vibe. It's the same reason why people love Groms. It's the same reason people love Miatas. The same reason people love K cars. It is slow. It isn't fast. It isn't flashy. It isn't the most expensive thing. It's not the highest status thing, but it's my thing. It's something that I'm so ridiculously in love with, so ridiculously charmed by, so ridiculously attached to the point that I actually cannot see myself living without a Super Cub ever again. I let go of the expectation of trying to buy another vehicle and that vehicle being a supercar. It genuinely stressed me out for the past 2 years. The MC20, the Black Series AMG, I chased tons of supercars. I even tried to chase like the Vader G35 as a kid car, Factory 5. I even tried to get the newer Factory 5, but I just didn't know when it was going to be made. But after a while, I just let go. I let go of my expectations. I let go of the expectations of what others may think or have of me that may have not even have existed, but I placed on myself because I cared too much about what others think. Like, this isn't me trying to sell you a scooter. This is me giving you the perfect explanation of how I feel. I feel totally exonerated, totally vindicated from the stupid expectations I once thought that people had of me as a car YouTuber. Before I dork out more about that scooter though, I'm gonna end this video, and I hope it taught you something, and I hope you maybe even learned something about myself that may help you in your journey being a car enthusiast. Regardless, thank you for watching. If you currently enjoy automotive content and would love to see more, make sure to subscribe, make sure to like this video. Other than that, see y'all next time, Blade Angel out.